Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. Here's what's making news right now.
I think it's fair to say that we're 5 years in now, and there hasn't been any material move on the Ambassador Bridge's part to start construction of a new span across the Detroit River.
So this is our latest venture here, where we're working with Appeal Sciences to provide a plastic-free cucumber.
They can create safety plans in neighborhoods if there's a real surge of activity in a neighborhood. Those officers can advocate for more connections to services from the health unit and from other outreach services.
Thanks for joining us. A deadline is looming for the Ambassador Bridge. A permit to build the second span expires on August 30th. And as Dale Molnar reports, the bridge company has no current plans to reapply for the permit.
I don't think we need a second span.
Dan Hussey lives near the Ambassador Bridge. He's opposed to the new span because he says the Gordie Howe Bridge is all that's needed.
I think our new bridge is going to do exactly what we want to do, get the trucks away from the Wyandotte area and that.
But others are in favor.
Because we need it. We need to be able to move supplies quickly. And people are avoiding us and going to Port Huron because our bridge is too slow.
In 2017, Transport Canada issued a permit to the company that owns the bridge to build the new span, but it was only good for 5 years, and it would expire if construction didn't begin within that time. It hasn't. So when the permit expires, the bridge company would have to go through the whole process of reapplying. A spokesperson for the company tells CBC News they have no plans to do that. In terms of reapplying, circumstances could change that lead us to submit a new application, but we do not have a new application pending, writes Esther Jensen. The company says Transport Canada didn't give them a fair shake. The Canadian permit requires the old bridge to eventually be torn down, but a U.S. Coast Guard permit on the American side requires the old bridge to be retained. Jensen writes, Transport Canada issued a permit that conflicted with the U.S. Coast Guard permit we had previously received. It did so knowing of the conflict and without consulting with the U.S. Coast Guard. In effect, Transport Canada's permit was not a permit at all.
Just shows you basically how out to date the location is in many respects, and the challenges of doing what they want to do.
Windsor-Tecumseh Liberal MP Eric Kuzmierczuk says the bridge company has had enough time.
Well, I've had meetings with the City of Windsor and also have conveyed directly to Transport Canada our desire not to see an extension to that permit.
Mayor Drew Dilkens also says enough time has passed, and he says the lines of communication remain open with the bridge.
We are not closed off from trying to make sure that they understand what they need to do so that they satisfy the requirements of the city and that they're doing right by the people who live in the west side of the city. Part
of the project would involve closing off Huron Church Road from Wyandotte Street west to College Avenue. The city is opposed. Dilkens says he wants the city's concerns to be heard by the transport minister if the federal government is considering extending the permit. So far, the transport ministry is not doing that. An archaeological dig on the site of the second span has turned up historical human remains, which is being investigated by Walpole Island First Nation. It's another obstacle standing in the way of the new span. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
A Leamington greenhouse grower is taking a big bite out of single-use plastic. Crisp cucumbers, once wrapped in flimsy plastic, now a thing of the past. The CBC's Chris Ensing reports on an industry first, a change driven by consumer complaints.
Essex County is greenhouse country. 250 acres of it belongs to Westmoreland Topline Farms.
This is where the raw material comes from.
They grow millions of cucumbers plucked from these vines and processed on site, each one shrink wrapped in plastic.
These plastic rolls are for the triple wrap, right? The plastic cucumbers, right? The plastic is there to hold the respiration of the cucumber in, basically to lock in its freshness and keep it from oxidizing and spoiling prematurely.
The idea of having an individually wrapped cucumber in plastic, did you hear from people that that was a little frustrating, or going to grocery stores and seeing that when they can't use plastic bags?
Yes, I mean that's probably one of the largest concerns we have in the industry, where people have expressed the overuse of plastic, and seedless cucumbers has definitely been one of those items.
That ends this week. A new production line sends produce through what's essentially a car wash for cukes. Plastic wrap replaced by this spray, an edible tasteless mist that's plant-based developed in California. What exactly is going on at Cucumber?
The beautiful thing about Appeal is that we're actually using materials that are already found in the skins, the seeds, the pulp of plants. A typical English cucumber equates to about 1.6 grams of plastic. If you were to actually do the math on all the cucumbers that are consumed in Canada, it's about 800 metric tons worth of plastic, or 2 billion plastic straws.
We've gone from one of the most complained about items in the produce aisle to now a completely plastic-free cucumber.
I would say definitely the grocery store is a big issue for people. It's like once you start thinking about it, you just look around and you see like how surrounded we are.
The nonprofit environmental foundation Sierra Club applauds the move, which was consumer driven.
The problem is, even if you want to be a quote unquote good consumer, do your part, it's like a lot of the times you can't avoid plastic. It's not realistic for you. So that's really where like the government intervention comes in, is we need the government to actually put in these bans so that we can be better consumers. It shouldn't be up to us.
Seedless English cucumbers without the plastic now available at grocery stores in Canada, an industry first. And the range of plastic-free produce they offer could grow.
When we can do our part, we feel good about it.
Chris Ensing, CBC News, Leamington.
Windsor Police are launching an outreach program to address substance abuse in the community. They've received $1.5 million from the province. They say it will help to support consultations with community partners and neighborhoods, plus with investing in a team of 5 officers dedicated to this work.
We're the first responders. We're the first ones on the scene, right? I think the bigger challenge we are facing is how are these people connected after? That's going to be the key, right? So what are the resources? What are the support services available for these people? They're taken to the hospital after overdose, but where do they go after? Like probably like nowhere, right? They're back on the streets again. So that's going to be a key component here. Like how are police officers and this project going to help them connect somewhere? Like give them some kind of information.
The health unit and the city of Windsor are also involved with this initiative. And this comes as opioid overdoses continue to claim lives in the community. In the first full week of June, 5 people died that week alone. The police outreach program will be referred to as SNAP and is expected to officially launch in the fall. The inquest into the death of an inmate held at Windsor's jail continues today. The 30-year-old mother of 4 died by suicide back in May 2017 inside the facility. Today, we heard from an expert witness who has researched jail conditions on what they say were appalling conditions where Delilah Blair was staying. The CBC's Jason Vio has more, and a caution: some may find details in this report disturbing.
Outside of the hotel here where the inquest is taking place, it's day 3, and we're learning more about the circumstances surrounding Delilah Blair's death. We do know when she arrived at the Southwest Detention Center in Windsor in 2017, she had what was known as an inmate care plan, and that was noted to staff for things that they should watch for. In her case, it mentioned issues of depression, anxiety, and withdrawal. We heard previously from 2 correctional officers who cared for her. They didn't know how to access inmate care plans and still don't in 2020. Kelly Hannah Moffat testified today that these plans are absolutely critical for people in mental health units. She was also shown pictures of the male and female mental health units in the jail to see how they were different. Hannah Moffat calls the women's unit dirty, with no outdoor light or direct access to recreation activities. On the men's side, they have a basketball court. She says more space, more light, and you can see the outside. Plus, unlike the women's unit, there's direct supervision for the men, so officers are around the male inmates at all times. She testified if guards are more accessible, they are more likely to detect or see problems that may arise compared to indirect supervision. Correctional officers checked on the female mental health inmates twice every hour. Blair was found in her locked cell with a bed sheet around her neck 22 minutes after she was last seen in the common area. Firefighters and paramedics arrived in an attempt to revive her. We also know Blair was an Indigenous woman with Cree ancestry. At the time, there wasn't a a Native inmate liaison officer, no Indigenous programming available in the women's mental health unit, no access to elders, and the 2 correctional officers who testified so far say they didn't know Blair was an Indigenous woman. Now, Hannah Moffat testified that as a big gap and could result in Indigenous people feeling more lonely, isolated, and scared. Now, the inquest is expected to last several more days. We'll hear from more witnesses as well, and in the end, the jury is tasked with making recommendations that could prevent similar deaths in the future. Jason Vio, CBC News, Windsor.
The University of Windsor has been hit by a cybersecurity breach that affected its IT systems. The school said in an update at 4 p.m. today that its website and other university systems were offline. The shutdown appeared to last for an hour. The university says an investigation is ongoing into this cybersecurity incident. Canadian consumers have been hit with another nasty spike in inflation. Statistics Canada reports prices jumped by 7.7% in May. It is the largest year-over-year increase in nearly 40 years. Energy prices fueled the rise, going up nearly 35% compared to a year ago. Much of that coming from a 48% hike in the price of gasoline. Crude oil prices are up due to the ongoing war in Ukraine. But there's also an increased demand for fuel with more people traveling now that COVID restrictions have relaxed. And food prices also continue to eat away at consumer purchasing power. The cost of groceries climbed nearly 10% in May, and restaurant meals are up almost 7%. As a way to lower the cost of living, U.S. President Joe Biden is asking Congress to suspend gas taxes for 3 months. And he's asking state legislatures to follow suit. If Biden is successful with his gas tax holiday, Canada will be the only G7 country not to bring in a tax cut or subsidy to help deal with prices at the pump. But Natural Resources Minister Jonathan Wilkinson said earlier this week the federal government has no immediate plans to cut prices at the pump, with a temporary reprieve from the federal gas tax. Long lines and delays at some airports across the country are a big problem. And with the summer travel season about to kick into high gear, there's concern it could get even worse. CBC's Greg Ross got some advice about what you can do to try to minimize travel chaos.
Traditionally, the summer travel time is our busiest season.
With travel picking up, it's going to be very difficult to predict delays at the airport. So more than ever, there's one thing travelers need to do.
Well, the best thing is to arrive early. That's our biggest tip.
Many weren't taking any chances.
I came way early.
She arrived 3.5 hours before her flight to Sweden. This man arrived 6 hours before a flight to Mongolia after his original flight was canceled.
We were supposed to fly 2 days ago, and then the flight got canceled due to, a lot of people flying, those kind of problems.
Security lineups can be massive. In order to keep them moving, the Canadian Air Transport Security Authority says travelers need to know what they are allowed to bring on a plane before arriving at the airport.
Make sure that the liquids, gels, and aerosols that you have in your carry-on bag meet the volume restrictions.
They showed off a number of items people have tried to get through security that are definitely on the banned list.
These type of tools are simply not allowed in carry-on baggage, as well as the bullets, so bullet belts. It might be a fashion, a trendy thing, but it's not allowed through the screening checkpoint. Torch lighters or lighters that look like grenades, don't put that in your carry-on.
It's also important to have all of your documents in order, especially if you're flying internationally.
Vaccine mandates have been dropped here in Canada for people who'd like to travel, who'd like to fly within Canada or leave. However, there are still restrictions around the world.
Not having to show proof of vaccine was welcome news for these travelers flying back into Canada.
It's making everything much more faster, much more smoother, and I'm definitely happy all the mandates are gone.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know if it's safer, with the mandates and COVID still out there.
When traveling back to Canada, it's important to make sure that you filled out your Arrive Can form, which can be found on the Arrive Can app. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky delivered a virtual address today to Canadian university students, some attending in person at the University of Toronto. He urged people not to forget about the war in his country, now nearly 4 months into the Russian invasion. Thomas Dagla has this report.
Thank you, everyone. On campuses from Alberta to PEI, he draws a crowd, a worldwide source of inspiration in Ukraine's darkest hour.
He is teaching the world and leading.
President Volodymyr Zelensky
Thank you.
speaking to students across Canada as Russia brutalizes his country for 118 days and counting.
Please do not allow anyone to forget about what's going on in Ukraine, to forget about war.
Zelensky has already delivered his message to parliaments and international forums. Now he's addressing universities to help bolster continued support and avoid what some have called Ukraine fatigue.
We were all very impressed and heartened by how quickly the Ukrainians and effectively were able to push back against the Russian invasion, but it's going to go on for a long, long time.
Zelensky appeared at the University of Toronto 3 years ago with a suit and tie and a smile.
We are prepared to surprise the world.
This time, he wore the military fatigues of a president under siege, taking questions from students, even welcoming a dose of humor.
You have been compared to so many cultural icons, ranging from Sir Winston Churchill to Harry Potter.
Hearing directly from Zelensky carried special meaning for Ukrainian exchange student Katerina Luchka. She intends to return home to Chernihiv in December.
I hope that it will be safe to come back there, because last week my hometown was bombed.
Other Ukrainian students also drawing inspiration from Zelensky after sleepless nights spent hearing nightmares from family.
They say, yeah, we can hear like the planes, the fighters, and you understand you can do nothing.
Zelensky told them they're doing something just by spreading the word, ensuring Ukraine's horror isn't forgotten. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
A LaSalle swimmer has clinched a world championship gold.
Kylie Maas wins the gold medal here. She wins the 50 for the first time in a blanket finish.
Kylie Maas won the medal in the 50-meter backstroke at the 2022 FINA World Championships in Budapest today. She completed the run in just 27.31 seconds, squeaking in before the second-place competitor, just 0.08 seconds separating the two. Maas will take home 2 medals. She secured a silver in the 100-meter backstroke on Sunday. These last few days have been scorchers, so hot yesterday that Windsor set a record. No surprise really for anyone who spent time, even a little bit of time outside. It got up to 34.9 degrees Celsius yesterday in the city. According to Environment Canada, that just beat out the old record, which was set a decade ago. The previous high was 34.4 degrees Celsius, set back in 2012. So will today be another record-setting summer day? We're going to check in with Colette after the break. Stay with us. The heat did not deter one family from taking a leisurely stroll in the sun today. Check out this photo. Mama turkey with her 12 chicks following behind. Andy, one of our viewers, sent this in to us, and he says he's taken many pictures of turkeys around Windsor over the years, but he's never captured a mother with this many chicks. It's a good time to bring in Colette Kennedy. And Colette, I actually didn't know that that's what baby turkeys looked like, so I learned something today.
Yeah, I've seen wild turkeys too, but never babies, so that's awesome. Also pretty awesome, the heat. I mean, depends how you look at it, but awesome in terms of the nature of it. And this is what we're looking at today. These are not all the records in the province, but just some of them, and just focus in on Harrow here, 32.7, so a new record there. Not the only one, Point Peely at just over 30 degrees, a new record as well. And we weren't the hot spot for the day in Windsor for all of Canada. That went to Toronto at 35 degrees, just over in fact, but at this hour, we are the hot spot for Ontario and for Canada in the Windsor area, just under 32 degrees. So sleep like a baby tonight, and you may not believe it, but looking at the chance to dial back that air conditioner and some more comfortable air moving in. We get a stretch of dry weather with sunshine. Our daytime highs are going to be trending warm, but not as oppressive as what we've been going through. The current temperature, there it is, it's rounding up to 32 from that 31.7. Some of that cooler air, it doesn't seem cooler, but that northwesterly flow in the breeze is going to feel better and less sticky, and it will get cooler. So the Humidex values have come way down from the 40s. Now they're just a little bit above the temperature, so not that difference we're seeing between the two. The heat warning is still in place. I do anticipate this being lifted later on this evening. The active weather associated with the cold front is into eastern Ontario, so there are still some severe thunderstorm watches there, but we stay in the dry and in the clear through the overnight hours, and that's going to allow those temperatures to fall off to more comfortable areas, and we get into sun for the next few days. So overnight tonight, 14. Can you believe that? And feeling closer to those numbers here. 12 for you in Sarnia and London at 13. Looking ahead, though, 27 tomorrow, feeling only 30, and then that gradual climb comes back in Katarina. The humidity will start to climb back, too, in about a day and a half to 2 days.
Oh, boy. Thanks for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
When we come back, a young boy with a dream to become a pro wrestler. Stay with us. Welcome back. We've all said the words, "When I grow up, I want to be." So it shouldn't be a surprise that a young boy from Kahnawake has already decided on his career path, professional wrestler. Now, the twist in this story is he's actually met his wrestling hero who lives in the same community, and the two have formed a charming friendship. Ganasio Deer from CBC Indigenous has the story.
And what's that move called?
It's called the punch in the face.
He's young, but Dane Fleischer has big dreams.
I like about wrestling because I want to fight once I get older.
The 60-year-old found out a local legend lives in his community, and the two have formed a special bond.
I want to thank you very much for your remembering me for my birthday.
Billy Two Rivers lives at the Cattery Memorial Hospital Center in Kahnawake. The retired wrestler shares video messages with his young friend.
Thank you, Billy.
I got your picture.
I got your picture.
You know, he was like so excited to know that like a real wrestler, you know, lived here and that he's like so close to home.
Billy Two Rivers spent 24 years wrestling around the world. He turned heads with his headdress and beaded vest, but his signature look wasn't traditionally Ganyakahaga. His feathered bustle made for a challenging ring entry.
It was my first bout. I was like, you know, just all nervous and shaky. As I got over my toe, got the top rope, and I ended up in the middle of the ring in a bunch of feathers.
We're only the second people to have them, so they're still new belts. So
they call themselves the Dad Bod Squad. Kyle Zachary and Sean Rice are the newest pro wrestlers from Kahnawake, and they've been influenced by Two Rivers' legacy.
For us, we're carrying a torch that hasn't been carried in 50 years, you know, so we're carrying the community on our back when we go into the ring every time.
He's almost like a hidden gem type of thing. Like you would never think that someone, you know, accomplished all those things from Kahnawake, from a small community in Quebec.
The wrestler picks them up on the back.
Like his hero, this, for now, tiny grappler hopes to make a big impact on fans when he one day enters the ring as the Great Dane. Ganasio Deer, CBC Indigenous, Kahnawake.
That is it for CBC Windsor News. But before we go, I want to say thank you to Michael, who wrote in after our baby turkey story to say that baby turkeys are not called chicks, but they are called poults, in case you were wondering. That was new information to me. So thank you so much for that, Michael. And for news anytime, go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. Thanks for watching.